It's New Brew Thursday! Woo! And we're here at Flying Dog Brewery in Fredrick, Maryland. Fredrick.
What the hell are we doing in Maryland?
Maryland.
We're here for the wonderful brewery.
It's been only a little bit of sleep, right?
Only a little bit of. I don't, actually, very little sleep.
What the F is sleep?
Yeah, exactly.
It's overrated.
Yeah,
I'm actually functioning on coffee right now for once in my life. I feel pretty good.
We flew out last night from LA at 10 p.m. Landed this morning, got into a rental car, and drove straight here. So
It's dedication.
It was pretty amazing.
Very nice.
Hardcore.
Hardcore.
Yeah.
We're here with Matt. Matt is the Vice President of Brewing Operations here at Flying Dog. And what does that mean, actually?
Well, I'm responsible for pretty much everything grain to the bottle of beer that's coming off the packaging line. So that includes all the brewing, cellaring, filtration, quality operations, and packaging.
Right on.
Yeah.
So you take care of everything that makes this wonderfully and
I try to. Yes,
so anytime I have one that doesn't taste quite right, I can call you directly.
I'm the guy to blame.
We'll go ahead and flash his cell phone number right at the bottom.
We're drinking Raging Bitch
today.
Cheers, guys.
Which is their Belgian.
Yeah, it's
and I love these little glasses. These are awesome. This is a Belgian IPA. All of your Flying Dog Brewery, obviously, so all of your brewers kind of center around that theme of dogs and the rather rabid dogs and frightening animals that you probably put down before you invite into your home. So what kind of spawned that? What was the...
Well, Raging Bitch, it's interesting. We have 6 year-round beers, 4 seasonals, and 4 beers that we call our Canis Major Series, which are a little bit bigger in gravity and alcohol. But even with 14 beers in the lineup, you still run into situations in some markets, particularly here in the East, where everybody's always looking for something new, and the bartenders are always telling our sales guys, I've had that. 14 beers, and they still want something different.
Oh yeah.
So I sit down kind of with the rest of the team, and we start brainstorming on what we would like to do, but also what would probably appeal to the drinking public, and especially kind of in the Northeast in cities like Washington and Baltimore and Philly. And almost approach it from a standpoint of, if we walked into that bar in Philly or something like that, started looking at all the tap handles, what would we want to order? What would we want to drink? And there's tons of great beer out there. But do we want to do another stout or another pale ale? I don't know. Exactly what it would be. But especially in these kinds of markets, we know Belgians are very popular, IPAs are very popular, and when you so it seems logical at first. You say, well, okay, a Belgian Style IPA. But when we start talking about there are some great examples, I think, out there, but I think there's a challenge to brewing a good Belgian IPA because it's sometimes difficult to get the hops to really work well with the yeast character of the beer. So the way it really started out was we took we a lot of times when we brew, we'll brew kind of 4 batches in a day to fill up a 200-barrel tank. We have a 50-barrel system. So we were able to divert some of our snake dog wort. First, we kind of amped it up a little bit as far as the gravity. So got a little more sugar in there, raised the gravity up by a couple points, and then we have small propagation tanks that we use for our yeast. So we went ahead and we just diverted about 6 barrels of wort into one of our propagation tanks, and then we pitched it with our El Diablo yeast, which is our Belgian white beer yeast. Okay. And the fermentation went great. That yeast is pretty impressive, very fast, vigorous fermenter. And the snake dog is dry hopped with Columbus, and kind of to get away from that and to do a little experimentation, we dry hopped with Amarillo, and let the beer condition for a while, and got some CO2 on it, got it into 6-barrel kegs. And we tried it, and it was what we thought was phenomenal.
Right.
The whole team was like, "Wow, this is something special." But it's one thing to think that of your own beer, but it really takes going out into public and seeing what other people think. So we sent it to some accounts in Philly and Baltimore and Washington. And me and Bob Malone, our head brewer, went down to the Brickskeller one night and kind of had a bunch of different beers, and everybody was commenting on how great the Raging Bitch was. And at that time, it didn't even have a name, actually. But they were so excited about it, and and it's one of those difficult situations where everybody to your face is going to tell you that your beer is great. You know what I mean? So you don't fool yourself into thinking that oh wow, this is something special. But it really started snowballing. We started getting emails from the guys that were at the Brickskeller, and some of the kegs were that went to the other accounts, and people were just crazy about it. So we decided that we had our 20th anniversary coming up. We kind of wanted something new, unique, and interesting to be our 20th anniversary beer. And so Raging Bitch was born. Our first bottles came off the production line on December 15th of 2009, and it's quickly becoming one of our best-selling beers in a very short period of time.
Yeah, this is definitely a beer that, as far as on the West Coast goes, it's been anticipated from you guys. This is one of the first Flying Dog beers. It's been like, oh, Raging Bitch is coming out, and that's the beer you got to try.
Like, we had a few people that we in the craft beer circle out in the West Coast that got like kind of advanced copies, so to speak.
Right.
And, and it got rave reviews, and everybody's been loving it out there. So.
Yeah.
Flying Dog seems to me like it's the biggest little brewery that I've ever seen. It's
sure.
Like that was another thing that I didn't really expect when I came out here is we get very limited quantities of Flying Dog in the West Coast.
Right.
And so I asked you like, oh well, how far do you distribute nationwide, and what do you distribute?
Right now we're in 48 states and 29 countries.
That's a lot.
Yeah, and that's huge. And I expected you to be like, oh, we're mostly East Coast. We get a little bit out to the West Coast, but I was like, oh. And then I'm looking around at like all these fermenters.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Yeah.
Because when you took us around the back, saw it, I'm like, oh, this is cool. And then we walked down the hall, and I'm like, what the
vat
hell?
after vat.
Yes, yes.
So which are the 2 states that you do not distribute?
Let's see. I think it's North Dakota and Utah.
Just to say a little something about this, I'm picking up like the Belgian, like in terms of the hybrid. Like I pick up the Belgian in the nose, but it tastes like an IPA. Like that's kind of what I'm
Well, it's
getting.
definitely you get a lot of that tropical fruitiness, and that again, it's a combination of the yeast character and the hops really working well together, where they're marrying together well and not contrasting each other and kind of fighting for the same space.
Well, and the East Coast IPAs are a little bit different than West Coast IPAs too, as far as like what they tend to go for in their beers. East Coast tends more to, and correct me if I'm wrong, because obviously you have more experience with this than I do, but East Coast tends to be more on the flavor side than they are on the aroma side for the hops. And the West Coast loves to just bang you in the face with the hops on the aroma,
and
then kind of like hit you again in the back end of it with the flavor. So I really get a lot of that off of this, where you're getting, and it reminds me a lot of the Miyama Blonde that we did in Japan, actually.
Really? Yeah,
Where
the only
it's like
difference being where the Miyama Blonde didn't really have any nose to it.
Yeah, you didn't smell anything at all. But it just
had a lot of
that was
flavor.
one of the first hoppier beers that I had that I couldn't smell the hops on.
Right.
Yeah.
And so
I
But
just got
going-
to try that yesterday, and I agree.
Going along with what Brad said, though, it's kind of like the Miyama Blonde, except you get the Belgian nose on it with that big hop.
It's definitely an impressive like version of this style of like hybrid beers, and I think that's kind of the curse and the blessing of the craft beer industry now, is that you're right, like it's not acceptable anymore to have a pale ale, a stout, a porter, and a brown anymore. Like you just you can't get away with that. You have to have something extreme, something kind of on the edge, and you've got to constantly be innovative. And
well, that's what it's all
changing.
about. I mean, you got to push the envelope and
I
have fun.
think it says a lot for craft beer drinkers. You know what I mean? Where they're this evolution that's been going on now for decades of people that are just really seeking out more assertive beers, and I think that this is a good example of it. We got other beers that are plenty hoppy, but it's interesting because it seems that even internally, just looking at sales trends and things like that, the hoppier beers do a little better. And I don't know if I don't want to speak for the entire craft beer industry, but I think that right now at least that seems to be what the trend is. So the amber ales and those kinds of things are diminishing a little bit while we're seeing those hoppier, more assertive beers stand out.
So I noticed all these Ralph Steadman drawings and obvious references to Hunter S. Thompson in the quotes and stuff. I don't know if you can see it on the back here, but did you want to just explain what the connection to Hunter S. Thompson is?
The connection, our founder, George Stranahan, has a ranch up in Aspen, Colorado. And it was, back in the 70s, Hunter was, of course, going to the gonzo journalism. He had met Ralph Steadman at the Kentucky Derby a couple years earlier. Now Hunter's out in Colorado. He's looking for a place to stay. George has room on his ranch, so Hunter starts staying there. They hang out together at Woody Creek Tavern, and the relationship began from there. And of course, Hunter's relationship with Ralph, those three guys would end up hanging out together. And it was, Woody Creek Tavern, and kind of with, Ralph there and Hunter there, and in 1990, George started the brew pub, Flying Dog Brew Pub in Aspen, and he was really hoping to get Ralph to do some illustrations, some labels for him. So he kind of asked Hunter to ask Ralph, and I think Hunter was probably like, well, no, dude, that's not really his thing or whatever. And 6 months later, the proofs showed up on George's doorstep for the Road Dog Porter and Doggy Style Pale Ale, which are still our labels today. So it's been a great relationship. I mean, obviously, we just passed the 5th anniversary of Hunter's death. And it's been a great relationship with Ralph, though, ever since. So he does, the Raging Bitch I don't know, man. I'd love to flash that label up, so people can see that.
Oh, well, yeah.
But I mean, just crazy. And he also did the copy for the label. So all the copy is, he wrote that, and he was joking with the president of the company. He said, "All right, so I did the artwork, I did the copy. What do you want me to do? Get over there and fucking brew the beer for you?" You know what I mean? So, that kind of guy.
It's definitely one of the most recognized labels when you go out on the shelves. Like it just kind of like jumps out at you.
Yeah, I was gonna say a lot of when I think about you guys, I think of your labeling and your marketing as far as that goes, but I never knew the story behind it.
Super
And
cool.
it looked as if it's very artistic, but I didn't know that was the story, and it makes it that much cooler. And I have a new appreciation for it.
Yeah, like I just thought Gonzo was kind of a coincidence, the name of the beer. I didn't know it referred to Gonzo journalism and Hunter and everything.
There's a lot more to it. Yeah.
So what's the deal with the profits for Gonzo?
Oh yeah, sure. So Gonzo Imperial Porter, we brewed that to commemorate Hunter Thompson's life after his death, and of course we made the beer as crazy as Hunter, and there's just, if you look at the recipe for this thing, it's just ridiculous. There's tons of crystal malt and black and chocolate malts and just tons of hops and really over the top. We intended it to be a one-time release. It went to 750s. Those sold through really good, and the buzz surrounding that beer was just so immense that we decided to keep it around. And even from the time we started selling the 750s, a portion of that was going to go to contribute to the Hunter Thompson estate or whatever it was at the time. That's morphed now into the Gonzo Foundation, and that is a foundation that Hunter's wife has started, and we're hoping that we're going to have some events here and donate to the organization and hopefully provide some scholarships for young journalists. The thing is with journalism, it's somewhat it's morphed into something else. So the things that Hunter was doing, there's not too many people doing that anymore. And the way we get our news with the various large news outlets and things like that. So I think that there should be an effort there to preserve what is true journalism.
So I know the kind of communities in San Diego, California. I guess I don't know if it's so much a product of the geography or just the cluster. There's so many breweries and craft beers out there, so there are these tight-knit communities.
Yeah.
But out here, you have so much open space.
Yes.
And not as many. It's not as.
That's actually really
condensed.
good. I was going to ask that same question.
Yeah, I was just wondering, do you guys have that kind of camaraderie or collaboration with, say,
That's
Victory
a really good question, and it's funny you mentioned Victory. We try to get around as a group and visit some breweries that are within driving distance when we can, and we'd like to do it more frequently than we do. But the last one we did was actually up at Victory, so we had about 15 employees. We have our Winnebago. We drove up there, kind of
Yeah, I saw that outside.
toured the whole
We should get
facility.
shots. Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. So we try to do that, and we have pretty good relationships with all. We have the Brewers Association of Maryland. We have good relationships with all the breweries here. It is a little different. We have some of our folks are from Colorado, so I think that, at least in my mind, personally, for me, my network is more universal as far as covering kind of the guys I've worked with in the past years. I got whether it's Colorado or California or Pennsylvania or whatever, kind of have people scattered. So if you're looking for resources or have a question or a common experience or something you want to share, you can. I always just pick up the phone. It's pretty much.
Hold on.
Yeah.
But you do have a kind of a tight-knit relationship with them, even though you're not local.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's a great thing about. You guys know this. Craft brewing. Everybody's.
That's what the community's about.
Everybody's helping each other out. It's amazing. I don't know what other kinds of industries where everybody's just got each other's back like this. It's just great.
This is a tap room, so you guys don't serve food. You only serve beer.
That's
and
right.
So that's why we don't have any food pairings with us today. But we still are going to cut away to Dr. Bill, and we'll have his master pairing, and we'll be back right after that.
Oh, here we are again. Another great master pairing with Dr. Bill. It looks like we're pairing spaghetti. I've never thought about pairing spaghetti with a beer.
Well, a lot of people haven't, so that's why I thought I'd do that. Basically, spaghetti and meat sauce is actually unnatural. If you went to Italy and asked for a bowl of bolognese, which is their meat sauce, and a bowl of spaghetti, and asked them to combine it, they'd look at you like you were American. American Italian immigrants came over and they decided to make some easy comfort food, so they made a thing called Sunday gravy, which is a red meat sauce that they would cook down all day, and they used spaghetti pasta. This is actually fusilli that we're using, which has a little more of the ability to catch the red sauce.
Right.
But normally spaghettis doesn't really go with the red sauce because of the fact that it doesn't catch all the
Right.
little nooks
What
and
did you
crannies.
call
There
it?
aren't any. This is fusilli.
Fusilli.
Fusilli. With something with this, which has a tomato-based product, it has onions, it has garlic, mushrooms, sausages. You want a beer that can complement those and hold up to them, and cheese.
Right.
We have some great aged Parmesan Reggiano. So a perfect style for this is an American amber ale. And one of the hallmarks in American amber ales is Bunt Amber from Anderson Valley Brewing Company, which has been around for over 20 years.
How would an Orval go with this? Because I know you were saying when we tried that.
Belgian pale ales go really well with tomato.
Right.
And so I'm sure it would be fabulous. There you go. American amber ale, you're going to find beautiful color, amber, thus the term. Nice malt background, some hops. Really clean.
Yeah.
It's got caramel notes. Got beautiful hops.
It's very drinkable yet
Yeah, it's
very complex. Like it has.
This is 5.8%.
Full body.
This is a 5.8% beer, so it's not that low in alcohol. But the malt will cut into the tomato and complement the sweetness of it. The hops will play very well with all the other characteristics. The fennel in the Italian sausage, for example. Excuse me. And it will go hold up with the cheese, the fat, and the oils that are in there. So I think we give it a shot and see what you think.
Okay.
What do you think of that?
It's good.
The style of beer goes great with anything tomato based, so thus you now have a beer perfect for your pizza. That would go excellently. And but I love it. Italian sausage sandwich goes great with. Goes great with a lot of different meats that are roasted, grilled. So it's just a win-win situation with this beer and tomato-based products. Now, strangely enough, one of the best cheeses with an amber ale is Parmesan
Oh, perfect.
or Asiago or any of the hard Italian cheeses. So this is some very nicely aged Parmesan Reggiano. So it's got a lot of crystallization. Got a hint of saltiness.
That's unlike
Turns
any other
creamy.
Parmesan cheese I've had.
It's just really well crafted.
Yeah, it's softer on the tongue. It's almost like fiber, like fibrous on the surface there.
Yeah, it's the crystallization from as the cheese ages. It has all these little crystal pockets that are lovely. You get a little fruitiness from the hops, but it's really the caramel playing with it. And this beer is great with these kind of cheeses. It works with Gruyere, different things like that. Also, Goudas work great with most darker beers, things like that. So you
That
can
is
do a
really
great,
good.
for example, you can do a great macaroni and cheese.
Okay.
Like a 3-cheese macaroni and cheese, and do it, and this beer would just be awesome. Any of the Italian hard cheeses, Spanish Manchego would work too. Cow's milk cheese works really well with it.
Okay.
So I would say just making it a cow's milk cheese will obviously go really well with amber ales. And then these American amber ales are just so nicely crafted. Ones like Bunt Amber, Red Seal, different ones like that, Jamaican Red. You know, a lot of these breweries have been doing this style for 15 years, and they just make fabulous versions of it. So you can't go wrong. So I hope you enjoyed these.
Yeah, I think I like the tomato pairing the best.
Oh yeah, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know what to do with spaghetti.
Right. Exactly.
You know,
Yeah.
they try, they got to drink red wine, but no.
Yeah, I
Beer-
never would have.
Remember,
Never would've
beer
thought.
has the carbonation. Carbonation is scrubbing bubbles. It cleanses your palate. It refreshes it. It lifts all the fat, heaviness of any type of food, cheeses, different desserts, and it just cleanses it and allows the flavor profile from the caramel malts, the hops to just play beautifully with it.
That's great. Well, thank you again.
Sure thing.
Another
Cheers.
great master pairing with Dr. Bill.
This week's signed copy of the Beer Wars DVD goes to our craft beer advocate, Eric, from Ukipa, California. Eric writes, "Hey guys, I'll make this story short, just like me. I recently began drinking craft beer because I really did not want to give my money to the big three beer makers in America. After having tried some of the bigger market beers like Guinness and Heineken, I thought maybe beer wasn't for me. Then I stumbled upon your show through Eric, better known as Fat Emo Kid, and began watching. At first I was lost with much of what you guys were talking about, but of course I had the same reaction when I was watching Gary Vaynerchuk on his show, and you guys were just as passionate about beer as Gary was about wine. I kept watching you, and you guys have made me try a few craft beers that otherwise I would not have given attention to. Thankfully, I can say that I've never had a Bud Light or Coors Light. I can, however, honestly give you how many beers I've tried on one hand before meeting you. Now I try to promote craft beer wherever I go, even though I still get lost when I walk into a place like Bevmo. Thanks for all you guys are doing, Eric." Thanks, Eric. If you'd like to send in your craft beer advocacy story, send us an email or a video link to advocate@newbrewthursday.com and we'll get it on the show.
Boom.
Matt, we really want to say thank you very much for letting us
Thank
come
you
in
guys,
here
yeah.
and interrupt your day,
It's been a pleasure.
especially when it was kind of
Any excuse to drink beer.
exactly,
again, guys, you know?
exactly. So, but as always, stay safe and drink beer.
Yeah, cheers.